Hello, Lucy here. I just wanted to take a moment to celebrate our thriving community. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but we have over 1,000 listeners, racking up nearly 3,000 views on YouTube and are closing in on 2,000 downloads, all in just 9 months. I mean, that's no small feat, and that's down to you. Thank you for your amazing support. You know, it's lovely to hear about all the connections and collaborations that are blossoming among you, our listeners, and the guests. If you love the show, then please do consider leaving a review. Your feedback not only boosts the show in the charts, but it also helps new listeners find the wilderness. So, share the episodes with your friends and family. And remember to subscribe to the Wilderness of Creativity podcast. Stay wild. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Wilderness of Creativity. Today we're joined by Kim Heslip, a former NHS nurse who's taken her passion for healthcare and wellbeing into the world of interior design. With a unique blend of nursing expertise and design skills, Kim creates spaces that not only look amazing, but also promote dignity, independence and a sense of wellbeing. From her busiest days as a mum of 4 to her most creative moments as a designer, Kim's approach to design is all about crafting environments that nurture both body and soul. In our conversation today, Kim shares her insights on how our surroundings impact our creativity, our sense of connection and purpose, as well as the inspiration she draws from the innovative Maggie Centres. She also offers some practical tips for bringing more creativity and intention into our own home design. Right, let's get to the episode. You've had quite a journey, haven't you? I mean, what did you do in the NHS?
So I was a paediatric nurse and I worked in the NHS for 20 years and for 15 of those years I was a community children's nurse. So I was looking after people in their own homes with complex health needs and profound disabilities, but paediatrics ranges from tiny little premature babies up to 19 years old. So you get the full range, and then you're also looking after the family because it affects everybody in the family when you have somebody with, a serious condition like that. So yeah, it was just helping them manage all of their health needs at home. So that could be helping them with the setup at home, making sure they've got the right equipment that they need, going into schools and training teachers and teaching assistants how to deliver aspects of care to the children so that they could go to school, doing dressing changes, blood tests, making sure they had everything they needed to try and live as normal a life as possible and do all of the things that, they should be able to do.
Had you always wanted to go into care?
When I was at school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, really. I think those kind of caring professions did appeal to me, and sort of that I loved how the body worked, and I loved biology, and so anything to do with that, really. And I did consider going into a career in medicine, but I wasn't sure, and it's such a huge commitment. It's a lot of training, and then it's all the training beyond, and then I ended up going into nursing, and I absolutely, I loved it to start with. It was great. It was a wonderful career, and I don't regret being a nurse. It was amazing.
Did you come out before COVID?
No, I worked through COVID.
Wow.
And so obviously I was a community nurse, so I wasn't in the thick of it in intensive care or anything like that. And the nature of my patients meant that we didn't really have to go in. If anybody had COVID or the family were isolating, we could usually just work around that and be like, right, okay, we can delay that intervention until you've finished isolating. So it didn't particularly have to kind of go in just people with COVID, but right throughout COVID, I was visiting people in the houses, and we had to have all the masks on and everything. And when you think back to the beginning of COVID, we didn't know anything about this disease, did we? We didn't know. So that was quite scary because we were being told, don't go out, don't see other people, don't have people in your house. And I had 4 young children, and I was having to go into other people's houses, as part of my job. So I was quite worried about that. So I was like, well, hang on a minute. What's this? What risk is this putting my family at? But yeah, I mean, like we soon got used to it. And then towards when we got to the point where the general public were allowed to mix more, and I know that a lot of my friends had those same anxieties that I'd had right at the beginning. And I was kind of like, oh no, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. I've been going in people's houses right throughout.
How did you move from working in the NHS to working in interior design? Because that's not so much of a leap now that I know what you were doing.
Interiors was my hobby outside of work when I was a nurse. So I loved interiors. I was, when I wasn't working, I was doing our own homes, doing various DIY projects, upcycling furniture, making my own soft furnishings, and reading the interiors magazines and books and watching all the TV shows. And that was my passion outside of work. And I had this little dream that started to develop of, I'd love to have an interiors business of some description one day. And meanwhile, working for the NHS and, gone through the pandemic, when I wasn't at work, I was homeschooling 4 children, spinning a lot of plates, juggling it. And I just ended up really burnt out. And, the pandemic definitely contributed to that, but also just the NHS in general, the way that it was getting squeezed, the way that we were constantly being asked to do more with less. And I just felt that I couldn't do the job that I wanted to be able to do, that I had been able to do in the past. And that was taking its toll on me, on my health, on my relationships within my own family.
Yeah.
So we decided that I should stop, and we were in a position financially where we could afford for me to stop. So I left nursing in 2021, sort of the end of the summer 2021. And at that point, I thought, well, it's kind of now or never if I want to follow this interiors dream. And I thought, I'm not going to just do nothing now that I'm not a nurse. So I enrolled on an interior design course and sort of started my interiors journey and started doing bits and pieces for people and gradually kind of built up a business. But it wasn't till quite a bit further down the line that I realised that I could actually bring in a lot of my nursing knowledge into my interior design work.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about how you do that then.
Because I've got a lot of experience of looking after people in their own homes with disabilities and complex health needs, I've got a really good understanding of the practicalities of accessible living. And I'm very, very passionate about inclusion because I've always worked with people who, haven't always been included. And I'm really passionate that people should be able to, enjoy public spaces, go to school, go to work, just, that the opportunities should be inclusive for everybody. And also that experience of seeing people's homes turned into like almost mini hospitals sometimes with all the equipment, people having to have a hospital bed. And I just felt like it could be done better. Like we could focus more on making places that are inclusive, but that are also reflect people's personal taste and just be a bit more creative with it. And so that it's not like you've got to have this, that actually it's a bit more seamless. So yeah, I at the beginning of 2024, I rebranded my business and I've niched it all, and I specialise now in doing inclusive and accessible spaces.
What sort of things can we put in place for people who are living at home with a disability?
If you've got the budget, you can renovate or you can move and you can go somewhere a bit more purpose built. I think when you're having to have a living space becomes your bedroom, I think privacy is a big issue there. I've seen spaces in people's home where there is only one communal living space and that's become someone's bedroom and it impacts the whole family. So I think in that situation, I would be really trying to focus on making that dining room more of an actual bedroom and not being like, "Oh, right, you're in the dining room, so, you know, so can we move some of the furniture out of there and put that in what was the bedroom upstairs?" Or, to make it just, this is your bedroom, and it's got it, you're not looking at, your sideboard and your crockery or whatever else you might have in there, and just being like, we're repurposing this room, but it's your room and it's your bedroom. And how would you like it to look? And obviously, you've got to have it set up so that it's going to be accessible and easy to get around. But I think when you do that, it gives people that bit of dignity and that bit of just feeling special and like not like, oh, and I've just got to sweep in the dining room sort of thing.
Our environment can help with our purpose, I think. So I'm in the conservatory at the moment. This was my little boy's playroom, but he's got like 3 different areas in the house, and we're renovating as well. And I'm terrible at interior design. We've bought a house that we need to renovate, and neither one of us likes decorating. We're questioning our decision. But the conservatory is now my wilderness room, so to speak. It is where I do a lot of my thinking, my meditation. It is my space, and therefore, when I come in here, my purpose is very clear. And I think that the environments that we create for ourselves can have a massive impact on how productive we can be in that space as well, don't you think?
So I definitely think it really helps with our purpose, with those kind of cues to our body of like, we're in this room for this purpose. Same with bedrooms, if you need your bedroom to give you those cues of, it's a room for sleeping, it's a room for resting and recovering. And if you don't have that, it can affect how well you sleep.
I mean, you got a little dog?
I do. Yeah, my son, she's not a little dog, she's a Labrador. My son has got a friend coming over, and so she is barking because someone's come to the front door. So apologies about that. She'll quieten down.
But this is the thing, isn't it? Spaces where you are, where I am, they're lived in spaces. Things happen, and it's trying to work around those things. Who inspires you in terms of design? Like, have you got anyone that you kind of look to and go, "Oh, yes, I want a bit of that in my life"?
I think all sorts of people really. The thing that I've been most inspired by is I don't know if you've ever heard of the Maggie's Centres, but they are so Maggie's is a charity, and they have centres for cancer care in a lot of the large hospitals around the country, and they are named after a woman called Maggie who had cancer, and she was, I think, an architect. And her legacy, when she died, she wanted these centres to be like a place of care, not like part of the hospital, just somewhere to escape to when you're going through cancer treatment and you're in hospital, and you can go there and it's just not like the hospital at all. It's a real escape. You can have a cup of tea. You can have like maybe some therapies, or, sometimes they have beauticians or hairdressers or just people in there that will help to look after you, a bit of self-care and support, and just helping you through what is a very difficult time in your life. So the Maggie Centres they're all given the same brief, but they're all very different. So each architect has interpreted that brief differently. And there's one at St James's Hospital in Leeds, which is local to me, and I've been to visit there. And it was just, I used to work at that hospital, so I knew the site, I knew where it was. The actual building itself has been built on the kind of, it was a tiny piece of ground that you wouldn't have even thought you could build something on. It's got a road that sweeps around it. There's the staff car park beyond it. Doesn't have attractive views, but the way that it's been built and the way that they have used light, the way that they've used planting, it's like walking into a beautiful warm hug, the building, and it is a complete escape from what's outside. You look out and you think you're in some sort of forest or something you wouldn't believe. So it's things like that that really inspire me. And I've got a book that the Maggie's charity published, and it's of all their Maggie's centres all over the country. So I like looking through that and just seeing how these different architects have interpreted the same brief, and they've all designed these amazing centres that are doing a wonderful job and making people feel great, but they're all very different.
Because you've worked in the NHS, you'll know this firsthand, but sometimes I think that where we take care of people, it does feel far too clinical.
I think people are beginning to wake up to that now, and I think it'd be really great to see what our hospitals of the future look like. I think there's a lot of recognition now for the trauma that people experience in hospital. And part of that is to do with the institutional setting that they can be in. So I think that hopefully as we move into the future and we see new buildings or renovations of hospitals, we're going to see better spaces for people that take that into consideration.
When you get your briefs through from your clients, what excites you about those? Like,
I'm always excited by any brief because my clients just don't know what to do, or interiors isn't their thing, and so they want something, but they can't get all excited about it because they don't like browsing through Pinterest at interiors and flicking through magazines in the same way that I do. So I get really excited about any brief because I absolutely love the transformation, and I love being able to solve a problem for somebody and deliver something that is going to change the way they use their home. A project I've been working on recently, it's a family dining room, a formal dining space. They didn't ever use it. Very rarely, like a couple of times a year, they'd have Christmas dinner, but the rest of the time they didn't use it. So the whole room was just a bit of a dumping ground for them, and they didn't really love the room. But it's got beautiful views of their garden, and I've worked with them to change it into a sitting room, and it can be used occasionally as a workspace when they need it. And then still couple of times a year, Christmas and special occasions, they're going to bring in a trestle table and use it as a dining space. But I can't wait to see this one completed because it's going to really transform the room, and it's really going to change the way they use their home. And they've got this beautiful view of their garden that they're now going to be able to sit and look out at, that they've never really looked at that perspective before. So it's things like that. I just get really excited by any transformation, really.
Do you put them in touch with people who can do the work, or do you kind of give them the ideas and then see if you can find people, I guess where they're living and, local tradespeople?
It depends what they want, really. Some people are quite happy to go ahead and do their own. Some people just want the design. Some people just want ideas. I do like consultations where it's just, helping people with paint colours and wallpaper colours, or just they've got a few problem areas of the home they're not quite sure what to do with. So I do that. Or I could do the full design and hand it over to the client, and then if they've got their own people, or they might be pretty handy themselves and they're going to implement it. Or I can bring the trades in and sort of coordinate the installation as well. So
And what software do you use?
I use SketchUp for like doing floor plans and layouts. So I use SketchUp, and then I use I sometimes use Canva to just like put together like mood boards and things. And then I use physical samples. So I play around with physical samples, because there's no substitute for seeing the real thing. So yeah, I'll get, if we're looking at fabrics and paint colors, I get the tester pot. I paint a big piece of card in the color. I get the fabrics and I play with them together. And then that then gets given to the client as well. So it's not just something on a screen saying this is what's going to look like. It's like, and here's the fabric, and you can feel it. And particularly if that is somebody that's got some sensitivities around texture and stuff, that's really important that they get to feel it and they get to see it all together.
How incredible that you have transitioned from working, I should imagine, very long hours in environments that are very varied, to now creating spaces for people who are going to, who are just going to absolutely benefit from them. How amazing that you've made that transition. You must be so proud of yourself.
It took me a while, I think when I first started to build my business up, and I wanted to appeal to everybody because I was frightened to niche, which I think, I think in any business, I think they say you got to find your niche, you got to find what sets you apart, but it can be a bit scary because you think, oh, well, if I say I'm good at this, people won't think I can do that, and that will cut off that side of the market. But yeah, when I first started networking, I would talk to people and they would say, oh, have you always been an interior designer? And then I'd start telling them my story. And that's when people would get really interested in it. And I'd say, I've got this real interest from my nursing career around the impact our environments have on our health and well-being. And I also got all this experience of accessible living, and I've got a passion for inclusion. And then, yeah, the penny dropped eventually that actually this is what sets me apart from other designers. So yeah, I am proud, and it is like it's really well received. And because I've got all of this experience I'm bringing in, I make links with other interior designers who are much more experienced in sort of working as an interior designer, but they still go, well, you've got all these skills that I haven't got. So yeah, there's like collaboration potential there as well, that they know that if they have a particular project that is for somebody that needs to be accessible, that they can come to me and I can help advise around that. So
That's so exciting. Can you talk me through your creative process? 'Cause I'm trying to understand how creativity shows up. How do you go from the brief to final transformation? Like, are there any specific things that work for you as a creative?
I have a really, really in-depth consultation with my clients. So I really get to know, what is the purpose of this space? Who uses it? At what times of day? There's some spaces that might at one time of day be used for one thing, and then in the evening it changes to something else. So we take all of that into consideration, and I ask them how they want to feel in the space. I kind of say to start at the end, like, just imagine yourself in this space. Don't be thinking about what color the room is or anything. Just tell me what you're doing in this space. So if they're saying to me, I am on a really comfortable sofa, I've got my feet up, the fire's on, I've got I've got a glass of wine or a warm drink, and I'm cozied up, then that tells me a lot about what that room needs to look like. And, we're going to need a comfortable sofa. We're going to need a footstool to put the feet up. We're going to need a coffee table or a side table for the drink to go on. And it starts to build a picture. And so I use that. And obviously I go into all their likes and dislikes, in terms of colors, patterns, textures. if they do have an additional need, like a disability or a health need, we explore that as well. So what do you need to be able to do in this space? What's easiest for you? Or I might bring in some of my nursing knowledge of, certain things where I know how that affects the body and how that might progress and what the future might look like. I always try to design for longevity. So it's something, try to build in something that's going to last a long time or that's versatile enough that can be changed, subtly changed and adapted to meet people's needs as time goes on. And then usually there'll be a starting point of some description. So either a treasured item that's going to be in the room. And I think that's really important because I think that's what makes, particularly if you're talking about designing a home, that's what makes a home. It's your personal items and the treasures and the things that tell your story. So I always say, like, what's got to stay in here, or what do you want in here? So it might be something they already own, or it might be, I've seen this painting and I'd really like to buy it. Or so there might be something, or it might be a part of the architecture, a bit of stained glass or something like that, where you're like, well, that's staying. So we've got to work with the colours that are in that. Or so there's usually a starting point that becomes quite obvious. And then the design starts to kind of the creative process. It all works from that starting point. So in the dining room project that I was just talking about, they had a print, a vintage railway print of a place that was very special to them. And that was going to stay in the room. And it's a really lovely print and it's got lots of lovely colours in it. And I said, well, I think that we should use this as the sort of inspiration for the rest of the room, and let's pick out some of the colours from that and work with that. And the clients absolutely loved that, and so that was the starting point. I've also done a project where they had a antique rocking chair that was a wedding gift, and that had to stay in the room. So they, at the time, it kind of didn't really match the rest of the furniture. So we tried to bring in pieces that would just balance that out a bit more, so it looked more a part of the room. And yeah, I've done projects where there's been stained glass, where we've just worked with the colours that were in the stained glass, because you're not going to replace a beautiful original door with stained glass in it. So we're going to work with that. So yeah, and then once I've kind of got my starting point, then I look at the colours, and then that's when I get all the colour charts out and I start looking at fabrics, and it just kind of builds from there, really. And I usually play around with a lot of ideas, and then it'll just suddenly come together and just think, yes, this is it.
Absolutely. And when you were talking just then, I mean, you said it, but I wrote down story. It's the story of their lives, of how they want to feel. And I think that's so special, so important that, that we recognize how the environment, how our spaces can help tell our stories.
Yeah, I think that's the difference, because I think I could go to John Lewis or somewhere and I could fit out a room entirely new, and you could have everything in it and it could all be lovely coordinated. It would look fantastic, but it wouldn't feel like your home unless it had a bit of you in it. And I think that if you don't incorporate those personal items and things that tell your story, then it can feel like you're staying in a hotel, or, that it just doesn't feel you. So I think
you're not connected
to
it.
And I think it's really important to understand your client's style, so that you're bringing in things that are, that they would choose, and also just incorporating those personal items that tell their story and make it their home.
And I suppose, Kim, as well, like when you are creating a space for somebody who has perhaps got a disability, or they've got something that is going to progress, like they've got Parkinson's, their story is perhaps not one that they are happy with. You know, their life is changing, their story is changing. It's really hard then to create that space, isn't it? That's going to hold them where they want to be, not where they actually are.
So definitely there is a lot of kind of mindset stuff that goes on when somebody's coming to terms with a new reality that's not what they thought life was going to be like. And I think where if we get the environment right, if we can create a home that's going to support them and that they like and that they feel safe and comfortable and it's got their personal items in, then that goes a long way to I think if you can create a space that's like, you know, okay, you've got to have your downstairs bedroom, but let's make it really nice for you. And, you know, let's find a bed that's you know, like I know of an upholsterer that can make an upholstered headboard for a hospital bed. So it's things like that where we're like, let's think what we can do to just make it more acceptable to you. And let's try and make it look a bit more seamless and yeah, just considering that person and what they like and enabling them as much as possible to be independent. And I think that is the key to it, because I think if people can get around their own home and do simple things, you know, I was watching an episode of Grand Designs a couple of weeks ago, and it was a couple and she was a wheelchair user and they built their own home. And one of the things that she said was, I love this new home because I can do my own laundry. Now, I hate doing laundry. I'm sure you hate doing laundry. But imagine if, as a mum, you couldn't do the laundry anymore, and how frustrating that must be if you can see a pile of dirty laundry, but you can't access your washing machine to just put a wash on. So it's things like that that enable somebody to do a simple job that we might think is the most mundane, awful, boring chore. But actually, it's part of being independent. And if you couldn't do that for yourself anymore, it has an impact and it has knock-on effects on the rest of the family because somebody else has to take that responsibility. So it's about designing places that can support people to be independent, thinking of solutions of what's going to enable you to be able to do this. And in that particular example, Grand Designs episode, they'd made like a window that she could slide a laundry basket through to the outside so that she could get stuff out of the washing machine, slide it through to the outside, and then go round and hang her washing up in the garden. So it's things like that. It's quite a simple solution. But it's just thinking like that about what can we do that can enable you to do this independently.
What's the plan for your amazing work now? What's next?
So I'm looking at being able to do commercial spaces because that's something that people keep asking me. So I'm currently kind of researching that and trying to put together something. But I think I've been sort of talking to lots of people about what might be useful, and one of the things that's been suggested to me is sensory rooms and things like that. So yeah, I'm looking at putting together some sort of sensory room package that people could have for office spaces or community spaces or schools. So so I'd love to do that. And then, I mean, at the moment, I'm doing kind of smaller residential projects, but I'd really like to build that up and get that into like whole house designs.
Where can people find you?
My business is called Nest and Flourish Interiors, and my website is www.nestandflourish.co.uk. So you can find me there, or I'm on Instagram at nest_and_flourish.
Where did the name come from?
Well, I changed the name when I rebranded the business. I changed the name. It just felt like it wasn't all aligned really with what I was trying to do. And it kind of took a sort of a bit of a stern word from my mentors who said, you are allowed to change this. It's your business. You can do whatever you want. So I was thinking, I can't change the name. But yeah, I changed the name and I wanted it to reflect just that, like the nest is the home and that if you get the nest right, then you will flourish and life will flourish. So that's where it came from. Yeah. And I just wanted it to sort of reflect that kind of nurturing, warmth, coziness, and kind of element of luxury and sort of indulgence, I guess.
And if you could say to any of our listeners how to get creative with their space, like what would you say to them? If they were thinking, I want to make a change in my house, or I want to kind of dedicate some thinking time to this office that I've got, or anything, like what advice would you give them?
I would definitely say start at the end. So think about what you want the room to be, what you want to be able to do in there, and let that guide you in your choices for the room. I'd say declutter and organize is a major one. I think that when we are organized and it helps us to stay tidy, there's less clutter about, so that doesn't cause visual stress in the same way. You spend less time tidying up, less time looking for things you can't find. So that's and just decluttering and tidying up and organizing can have a major effect on just how efficient you can run your everyday life. So do that first. Only have what you really need, or things that are very special. What do they say? Things that spark joy.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, but I do think there's a lot of truth in that. And I don't think you have to be completely minimalist. But I do think that just think really carefully about what you've got. Do you really need it? What purpose does it serve? If it doesn't serve a purpose, do you love it? Do you like it? And is it special? And that helps to guide you on what you need to keep and what you need to move on to a charity or recycle or whatever. I think light is really important for our well-being. So maximizing natural light in the day and using light at night time to help us wind down and relax and get ready, give our body those cues that we're going to go to sleep soon. So having thinking about your windows, how you can maximize the light during the day, and then at night time you want to be able to shut the darkness out. It adds warmth and texture to the room, but also then adding in lighting, layers of lighting in a room. So you've got different options and you can set the mood. You can lower the lights towards evening.
Nice.
And nature, I think bringing a bit of nature in really helps. So plants, natural materials, making the most of any views that you have, and designing to the senses. So we all think about what it's going to look like, but think about the acoustics. That's really important, especially with being able to relax. So using soft furnishings and things will dampen down sound and help improve the acoustics. Thinking about maybe scents that you might have in the room. So you might have scented candle or a reed diffuser or something like that creates a lovely smell that makes you feel good. Textures, just thinking about those textures, how things feel, all sort of comes together. But yeah, design to your senses, bring in nature, think about light and be organised. That would be my major tips.